Hello and welcome to My Own Worst Enemy. We're going to start a playthrough of Triumph and Tragedy. Triumph and Tragedy is a 2 to 3 player game, and we are going to make it a solitaire game. Although in this particular playthrough, I don't intend to show you how to play one side against the two other sides. This is going to be more of a narrative playthrough. And if you look at the board, you can see that I have all of the blocks are just laying down so that their front sides are facing straight up, so I can see all of the army values and all that kind of stuff. If you play the game as a 2 or 3 player game, these blocks, of course, would be standing up and facing the player so that the player that is playing that faction can see what the blocks say, but not what the other two factions' blocks say. I don't need to do that because I am playing solo, and honestly, you know, the hidden information in the multiplayer game isn't super hidden anyway if you think about it, because even though I wouldn't be able to see, let's say, these German blocks, I would know that there are 4 blocks here, 6 blocks here, and 2 blocks here. Wouldn't know exactly what the blocks are, but you know that there are blocks there, and if you're paying attention as you play through a multiplayer game, you can kind of follow what's going on. So in the case of me playing solitaire, it's not that important. I really want to see the values of those blocks. We're going to take that in consideration when we play this game. I would say that even in World War II, that the powers had a fairly decent idea of where a army might be placed. I don't think it was a case of where, say, the Allies had no clue as to where the majority of the German forces were located. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. We are going to play them face up. I'm not going to go through setup. I've already got the game board set up, and the rule book does an outstanding job of telling you how to set the board up, as does the player's aid cards, and you do get 3 of these. They will tell you how many cadres you get and where they get placed. Now, a cadre is basically just a unit, so a block is a cadre. When you set it up, you're going to make your cadres appear on the board with a value of 1. So if you look at the block, this one only has values 1 through 3. They can go up to 4. So when you set these up at the beginning of the game, they're all going to have a value of 1. For my particular setup, everything is pointed north on the board, so they're all 1s pointed this way. So when I adjust the value of a cadre, I will rotate it to its top value, will be what its current value is. So if this armored unit is a now facing up 1, if I rotate it to a 2, then it would be a 2 strength armored unit. But for now, in setup, they're all 1. So I've got all of the cadres in their major powers are set up. And I didn't put a whole lot of thought into this. I just kind of just grabbed some cadres and put them out what I thought might make some sense. It's, 1936. This is going to be a narrative playthrough. We don't know. This is an alternate history. Obviously, this game is not a simulation of World War II. It is what might have happened in a different World War II. These blocks that I've set up are just kind of almost randomly chosen, not totally randomly. I did know that, for instance, the Germans would probably want some subs in the North Sea area. The Italians would probably want a fleet or 2 down here in the Mediterranean. So I did put just a little bit of thought into it, but as far as land forces and air forces, I just kind of threw some stuff out there. And of course, we will change the priorities of these 3 major powers as we go along, these major factions, I should say. And in game turns, really, there are 3 great powers, they call them. There's the Western Alliance, which includes the United Kingdom and France and the US when they come in. There's the USSR, which is just the USSR. And then there is the Axis, which is Germany and Italy, of course. So we're only looking at Europe, no Pacific here. The major powers, the next level down would be the US, the France, and Italy. So they're not, Italy, like I said, is part of the Axis, and they are considered a major power. If you look at your map key, it will tell you the main capitals, the subcapitals, the capital cities, and all these things. By the way, the rule book in this game is fantastic. This is not a difficult game to learn at all. It is a very simple game to learn, and the intent of this playthrough is to help you get a feel for the game and start it. That's my intent. The narrative play, and plus to kind of show you, if you have any questions about moves and things or order, this video should help with that. But we're really doing a narrative play here, so hopefully it'll be interesting to see what happens in this world that's about to start World War II. If war breaks out, I mean, this game, war may not even break out, we don't know. Although I suspect it might. Just a quick overview of the board. We do that. The turn track is over here. We start in 1936. Our phase season track is over here. We will go through, as we go through a turn, we'll go through the complete seasons and then advance our year marker. We have investment cards on the right side of the board, shuffled. We have action cards on the left side of the board that are shuffled. The major powers are their production lines are in each, well, let's see, there's two on this side of the board. The Soviets are over here, the Western Alliance is over here, and the Axis is down here. Their population, industry markers, current hand size, resource markers, that'll be tracked on their respective tracks. I have put the action cards that the Axis drew during setup over here. They drew 14 of those. I don't know what those are yet. I have not looked at those. The West received 8. That's up here. The Soviets received 6. Those are up here. No idea what they are. The only thing I know at this point is what you know, and that is what these cadres are. And you can see that on the board. I will, in some cases, I will try to zoom in to the board. I've got another camera that I am going to try to get some close-ups if we need to do that. So I think the video, though, is pretty clear. I think I record these things in 4K, and I think you're probably able to read just about everything on this board. If that's not the case, let me know down below. So, like I said, narrative gameplay and the ways that you win this game, there are 4 ways that you can win the game. The first is you can have 25 victory points at the start of a new year. How do you get victory points? Well, your current production level is your current number of victory points, and the production level will vary depending on whether you're at war or not, your resource block is active, and what your between resource, population, and industry, it's the lowest of those block numbers. So in this case, the Axis, their resource block is not used, they're at peace, so their current production level is at 11 because the population marker is the lower of population and industry. So that would be 11 victory points that the Axis are currently standing at. And in other ways, you get +1 victory point for each level of atomic research that you have conducted. There are 4 levels of that. You'll get 2 victory points for enemy main capitals or sub-capitals that you control. And you can get peace dividends when you are at peace. And you will also lose victory points for certain things like declarations of war will lose you a victory point. The other way to win is through military victory. And basically that's if a faction controls 2 rival main capitals or subcapitals at the same time, then that will be an instant victory for the power that controls those. Another way to win is through an atomic victory. So if you do, in fact, research all 4 levels of the atomic bomb, and you have an Air Force unit within range to deliver that bomb, then you win immediately. And finally, the final way to win would be to get to turn 45, and the game will end, and whoever has the most victory points at that point in time will win the game. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward. It is not, like I said, this is not a complicated game to learn. It is rules, what I call rules light. The rules book is written in a very good style. I really like the rule book. Let's go ahead and jump in. Let's go ahead and start. And as I said, I'm going to third time now, this is narrative. So we're just going to see how the world unfolds starting in 1936. So I put a little bit of thought into this already as far as how to start off playing these factions. And I will adjust this as we pull the action cards, the industry cards. That's going to dictate also kind of where we want to head, whichever power draws their card. So if it looks like, say, the USSR gets a bunch of military cards or something, maybe they'll go for more of a military victory. They get a bunch of atomic cards, maybe they want to try an atomic bomb victory. I don't know. We'll see that as we go along. But just to start off with, I'm going to approach the Germans as sort of the way they historically proceeded with World War II. You know, it's just after the Treaty of Versailles. They're angry, they're upset, they want expansion. So I'm gonna start off imagining that they are still going to try to pursue some sort of military victory. They want to expand. So expansion is going to be the theme for the Germans, at least initially. The USSR, I think they're a little more difficult. They're, I think, also looking for expansion. So I think initially that's probably the approach I'm going to take with them as well, but maybe not. That's probably going to change as we go along. And then the West is the same way. I don't really have anything in particular in mind for the West. So we're going to have to kind of pick and choose as we proceed. And also, please leave comments down below if you want to add to this narrative. If you think you see something unfolding that makes sense that any of these three powers might want to do as we go along here, please let me know below and I'll take all suggestions into consideration. Now, one thing to note, there are no there's no like treaties in place here. It's just that we're going to start gameplay. There's no, for instance, anything that says, like the British haven't said, Germany, if you invade Poland, we're going to war with you. There's nothing like that in this game. It's something that, you know, the British player could choose to do. He could say to the German player, if he's playing across the table from him, you invade Poland and we're at war. The game rules do allow for that. But at this point in the game, no treaties. We're just going to dive in and see how things unfold. So let's jump right in. I'm going to grab one of the three players' aid cards. Grab the blue, it is the West, and it also has a great sequence of play here, which we will step through. The player's aid card also has the setup, as I said, some area control stuff as far as movement, combat sequence. We'll see this as we go along, the technology effects. So when you get a technology, for instance, you get heavy tanks. It says tanks have first fire. Normally, when you attack, the defender would be able to fire first, but first fire means that you can fire first. And on the back of the player's aid card, information on each of the cadres are back here. So something to note. So let's go ahead and dive right into this thing. Like I said, we are at 1936 and we are going to proceed. So the first thing you would do is a victory check or reshuffle, but this is the first turn. We've already done all that. No need to do it. Second thing we do is something called peace dividends. So if your faction has been at peace, and all of these have, we're starting off with the first turn, everyone's at peace. You'll get to draw one of these. I'll pull one out here. You'll get to draw a peace dividend, and on the back of this is a number, and that number is how many victory points you get. And normally, if you're playing a multiplayer game, you would draw this and put it face down on your side so that the other players cannot see how many victory points you might have already. Not going to be necessary for this solitaire playthrough. I'm just going to give it a good shake. And we will draw the peace dividends. And we'll just start with the Axis here first. I'm going to grab a peace dividend, and they get 0. So I'm going to put that over here. Let's see, where can we start tracking peace dividends? I'm just going to kind of put them off this side over here. Let's go this way. Next, we'll have the West. They will get to draw a peace dividend, and they draw a 1. So let's put that over there. Actually, I'm going to turn that around so I can read it easier. And then the Soviets draw a peace dividend. And they draw a 2. Okay, interesting. So we're going to put that over here as well. So that is it for peace dividends for 1936. Going back to the player's aid card and the sequence of play, the next thing is to determine the turn order. And the way that's going to work, I'm going to roll now I do have various D6s over here, different colors. I'm going to try to use blue for the West, red for the Soviets, and the white ones for the Axis. And these 4 black ones, this is what came with the game. We'll just use these for general type rolls, such as this one. We're going to determine the turn order. So I've got a chit here that came with the game that tells us we can put this on who has the first turn, who has the current turn, is this block. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's roll and see who's going to get to go first. So a 5. And what you do here is you look at the ends of the tracks have numbers 1 through 6. So you can see the Axis has a 1 pointing this way, a 2 pointing that way, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we rolled a 5. So it's telling me that the current turn order is starting with the USSR and will proceed to the West and then back to the Axis, then back to the USSR. So currently the USSR, it is their turn. The little cube has a clockwise and counterclockwise direction to remind you that the turn is going this way. So we're counterclockwising right now for the turn order. All right, so we start with the Soviets and continuing with a sequence of play. It's the production phase now. And the Soviets production blockade check. No, we don't do that yet. Nobody's blockading anything. It's too early in the game. Determine production level. So this is where you look at your industry, your resources, and your population cubes. if you're at peace, you do not include the resource blocks. So this resource block for the Soviets is on its peace side. And the back side, of course, would be if they're at war, but they're at peace. So we don't include that in this determination. So it's simply the lowest of industry or population. In this case, their industry is at 9. So 9 will be the number of production points that they have. And I'm going to grab a, let's see, I think I've got a marker to show the production values on the track. And actually, instead of using markers on the track, I'm just going to grab a, let's see if I got a D20 I can pull out here. Here we go. And we'll just count down on the D20. So let's see, I said they had a production, their industry's at 9 production points. So there we are at 9. And what can we do with 9 production points? So with the production point, you are able to buy 1 new cadre. So you can buy another cadre off board here and bring it onto the board for 1. You can build up an existing cadre. So you could go from 1 to strength 2 on any of these. You could buy an action card, or you could buy an investment card. And so we have 9 points to spend on any of that stuff. So with the Soviets sitting there with industry at 9 and the Germans are at 12, I think the Soviets are definitely in this initial turn going to want to at least try to increase their industry. So how do you increase your industry? If you look on the tracks, there is a cost that there's a little dollar sign at this factory. It would cost the Soviets 7 points to increase their industry up to 10. So those cards are going to come from your investment cards. And there will be numbers for factory points. And if you get enough cards to equal 7 factory points or more, you can increase your industry level, I should say. So I think one thing that the Soviets are going to want to do here is buy, I'm going to say 5 of these investment cards. So that's going to take us down to 4 points left to spend, if I can find 4. And that's going to give them 5 of these investment cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're going to buy 5 of those. And I think we're going to spend 2 more. I think we're going to buy 2 more cadres. So I really would like to see something in Kiev, Belarusia, maybe even Odessa, more towards Belarus. I don't know if we're going to go for Poland or not. We still haven't decided what the Soviets want to do ultimately, so we've got to figure that out. So I'm going to buy I'm going to pull out an infantry unit. So there's 1, we'll put it in Belarus since it's, let's put it in Kiev. I'm going to put it down here and get something on the board there. Get that off. So let's go down here in Kiev. So now we have 3 production points remaining. I'm going to buy 1 more unit. I'm going to buy, so see, we have armor, we have infantry, and I'm going to buy, I could buy a fort. Now you are limited with how many forts you can build. Let's take a look at the Soviets here. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's like 5 or 6 forts. No, it's too early to build forts. I don't know really where I'd put the fort. I'm going to buy another armor and put it here in Belarusia. And now we're down to 2. And with those 2, I'm just going to buy 2 more action cards. And that is going to do it for production for the Soviets, because they've now spent all 9 of their industry points on production. And so now we move along. The current turn block now gets passed to the Western player. And same thing here. So looking at the turn track, resources, we're at peace, we don't count. Population's at 12, but industry is sitting way down here at 7. So they're going to get 7 production points. And as you already know from the Soviets' predicament, industry level of 7 is not very good when you're facing an Axis that has one of 12. So they're definitely going to want to build up their industry. And so I think they're going to buy, I'm going to have them buy 5 industry cards as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are up there. Now we have 2 left. I am going to purchase just action cards with those 2 points. All right, and then turn continues this way now to the Axis. And we've already said the Axis has 11 production points. So we will show that. They have 11. And so they would also, even though they're at, their industry is at 12, they're going to want to increase their industry as well. I'm going to give them 5 of these cards, these investment cards. And remember, you can also get technology from these cards as well as increasing your production. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that takes us down to 6. And I think they're going to, and like I said, now this is the Axis, and I do think the Axis is gearing up for a military victory. So we are going to increase some of the, I think we're going to increase some of our cadres up from strength 1. So we're going to build some of these up. Now you can only build the a cadre up one time during a production phase. So we can't increase one up to 3 or 4. We can only go up to 2 at this point with any given unit. So I'm going to increase this armor to 2. So that's going to take us down to 5. I'm going to increase this infantry to 2. Now we're down to 4. These 2 are going to go to 2. So that is 2 more off of our, and then I'm going to increase, let's increase this sub to 2. So now we're at 1. And with the last one, I'm just going to buy an action card for the Germans, the Axis, I should say, because it does include the Italians. And keep in mind that I increased all German units, but I could have increased Italian units as well, but I didn't do that. All right, so that's going to end the production phase. And actually, I forgot to move the phase marker up to the production phase. This is where you track which phase you're in, which season you're in. So that's the end of the production phase. Now we're going to go into the what they call the government phase. And this is where we'll play the cards that we are given. We will go back up to the Soviet Union because they are first in the current turn order. So I'm going to grab their cards and take a look here at what we have. And like I said, we have investment cards and we have action cards. So one thing that I said that the Soviets probably want to do is build up their industry. And to do that, you play one of these investment cards has a, you can see it says factory 2, there's a factory 3. So there's different numbers on these cards. And if you total those, enough of those up to equal 7, then they can bump up their industry to 10. So let's see. The other thing about the investment cards, if you look, there are, so at the top, at the top of that card, it says heavy bombers. That's a technology. So if I have 2 of those heavy bomber cards, I could play that to get the technology for heavy bombers. On the other side, you can see that there is a industrial espionage, which would, if you pair with another of those industrial espionage cards, you could reveal a tech. So for now, though, I think I want to look through here, and I want to look through and make sure that there isn't one of these technology cards that I want right now. I don't think there is. I think we want to get our factories up. So if I can get 7, so let's see, there's 3, just trying to equal 7. I may have to go over 7. Looks like I will. So that's going to be 3, 6, and I need 1 more. So I'm going to spend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but that's going to get my industry bumped up to 10. Now you're allowed to bump up your industry twice in 1 year, so they could, in theory, do that one more time, even though I don't really have the cards to do that. Points-wise for factories, but if they did, they could actually choose to do that again, so got to keep that in mind. So these are the investment cards. They're going to go into a discard pile, and I'm going to put those off to the side over here. All right, so that was the first card play for the Soviets. They increased their industry to 10. So play now will go over to the West. And this will continue until all 3 sides have passed. And once all 3 sides have passed, then of course the government phase will come to an end. So let's grab the West's cards and see what they have here. Now, there's a lot of cards in the hands of these powers. There is a maximum card hand size that they're allowed to have to carry over. So we want to make sure that we don't get stuck with a bunch of cards in our hands that we haven't played. That would be very bad. So, and I'll note that it does say that on the sequence of play. So the government phase that we're in, each player will play a diplomacy, an intel, or 2 matching tech cards or factory cards to increase their industry level. Pass 3 times in a row will end the card play. And then it says resolve diplomacy. That'll happen after we are done with our cards. And then the hand size compliance, that's what I was talking about. Anything over your hand size, you'll have to discard at the end of this phase. So the West now wants to do the same thing with their industry. They definitely want to start gearing up. So I'm going to take a look at their industry cards first here. And I'm just looking at the technology just in case they have something I might want to hold on to. And here's a case of where there's something we may want to hold on to. There are two of these precision bomb sight cards, and that could be helpful. It says Air Force can bomb industry at, looks like 1. So I guess that you roll a 1 to bomb industry. So I don't think I want to play those unless I absolutely have to. There's some atomic research, but it's 2 and 4, and you have to build atomic research in order. So we'd have to start with atomic 1, but we don't have any of those. So it looks like none of these other technologies match. And so I'm simply going to play, and their cost to build their industry is 6. So I'm going to play 2 of these factory cards. That's 6. We will discard those, and our industry will go up to 8. So the West is increasing their industry, and that was their turn. We're going to come over to the Axis now. I will put the West cards back, and we will grab the Axis cards, and they have got a serious hand here. All sorts of cards. So we're going to get their industry cards first, because I think they're also going to want to build up their industry. But again, I want to take a second and look through here to see what they have in the way of technology. And again, that could decide on strategy as well. So they do have a double agent card. Reverse the effects of an intel card just played against you. That could be nice, but I don't know. We'll see. So the Axis has a industry increase cost of 5. So we want to get 5. And again, I'm looking at I don't see anything really worth keeping here. Let's see, I'm going to keep this one. I am just going to spend these 2. So I'm going to spend 5 points worth of factory. That's enough to increase their industry to 13. And that is the Axis turn. The current turn marker now goes back over to the Soviets, and the Soviet player will get to go again. Now, the Soviet player could choose to pass here, or he could choose to take an action. So let's see what the Soviets want to do. And you'll also notice I'm playing the investment cards first. The rules, either the rules of the playbook kind of tells you it's easier to do that just to keep the diplomacy stuff kind of separate. So you get through your industry cards, and then you can go into your diplomacy cards, your action cards. But you can do it as you see fit, but I'm going to stick with we're going to try to get through the industry cards first. So the Soviets could spend another 7 to get that industry up one more time, but they don't have enough factory points to do that. And I am going, and there's also some cards in here that, like this code break, that says inspect a rival's hand. So that, in a multiplayer game, that would be obvious as to what you would do there. For this solo play, I have to come up with something for that, and we may do that. So I don't think I want to do anything with that card yet. Same thing with industrial espionage. This says pair with any revealed text. So that's an easy one. I don't have to worry about trying to come up with something there. So I think what's going to happen now, I think the Soviets are going to pass here. They don't want to do anything quite yet. So they're going to just pass control over to the Western powers. So they're going to pass. Now the West is going to look at their cards and see what they can do. So it cost them 6 to increase their industry. They could certainly do that, but, and they still have the precision bomb sight. So basically it's a choice between, do I want to get precision bomb sight, or do I want to increase my industry? At this point, I think it's more important to increase the industry. So I'm going to play these two. Actually, yeah, might as well. So I'm going to play these two factory cards for 3 each. That's 6. So that'll let me increase my industry again. And this is the last time they can do that, because this is the second time that they have done so. So their industry is now at 9, and they can't do it again anyway because they only have 1 factory card left at 4. So that's not going to do them any good, but they can anyway because they've already done it twice in a row. So that's going to be their play, and we will put their cards back and go now to the Axis side. Let's see. I'm going to go back to the industry cards here. So they could, let's see, their cost to increase is also 5. They could also increase again. And I think they're going to do that as well. So they're going to play 5 points worth of factory cards to increase their industry one more time. So this is the second time they've done so. Their industry is now at 14, so they can't do it anymore. They can't increase their industry anymore this year. And so now play goes back to the Soviets. I think now they're going to play a diplomacy card. So let's see. Now, when you play these diplomacy cards, so let's take a look at one of these. Here's a diplomacy, or a action card, I should call it, not a diplomacy card. We will be playing them for diplomacy. So on the ends, you see Norway and you see Finland. So that's the diplomacy part. If you choose to play one of the, say we want to gain influence in Norway, we would play the Norway card side up so that we know that we are now trying to get influence into Norway. The other powers could also do so and cancel out that Norway card. The other thing that these cards are useful for, you'll note that in the middle of the card it says Fall Command, G8. So what that means is Fall Command means if once we get into the fall of the seasons, we play this card, we can move 8 units. And the letter in front of that is going to tell us who gets to do that first. So this is actually kind of a lower lettered card, so it gives us the opportunity to perhaps move first, maybe not. So you want to look at that also as you're looking at potential cards that you might want to play for diplomacy or for moving your forces. There are also cards in here that will allow you to add influence automatically, and that's what this one does. This is the Birds of a Feather card. It says add 1 friendly or remove 1 rival influence marker from one of the neutral nations listed after your faction. So here the USSR could only do this for Spain. So they could add a friendly influence marker into Spain if they play this card. They may want to do that, actually. I don't know. And there's another one where they could do the same thing for Spain and Czechoslovakia. Interesting. So do they want to antagonize the Axis? I don't know. So let's see. What do they want to do here? And one word about the USA, because that is an option here for the Soviets. They could play an influence into the USA. Now, when you gain influence over a neutral nation, there are 3 levels of influence that you can have over those neutral nations. So the first level, let's say that we played, Norway was one of our choices. So if we played a Norway card and we had 1 influence marker in there, then we would be able to gain the resources and population for Norway. Here they have 1 resource. Oslo is a town, so there's no population value for that. So we would get that one resource coming into our faction if we had 1 influence. The Norway would remain neutral, and then any incursion by a faction into an associate territory, that's 1 influence, would require a violation of neutrality. If we had 2 markers in there for the Soviets, they would become a protectorate, which is the same as I just mentioned, but you would add the fact that if a rival attack on Norway at the level 2 would be a declaration of war, would require a declaration of war on the Soviet Union if they had 2 in there. And then finally, if you had 3 influence markers in there, then that neutral becomes controlled by the faction. So if we had 3 markers in there, then Norway would basically become part of the Soviet Union, and the Soviets would actually get cadres in there. So the way it works though with the United States, this is where I was headed with this, is the USA and Canada do not operate, well, the USA doesn't operate like that. You can still, as the Soviets, put influence markers into the US, but they will never become a satellite or a protector or any of those things with either the Axis or the Soviets. But what that will do is your influence markers will make it more difficult for the West to get the USA as a satellite. And the West is the only power that can get the USA as a satellite. So it may not be a crazy thing for the Soviets to put an influence marker into the USA if they desire to keep them from aligning with the Western allies, which don't know yet. Like I said, it's too early and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it is these powers want to do ultimately. So looking through these cards, I think they do want to play a Romania card. So Romania is down here. They would like to try to influence Romania, maybe they can move their forces forward towards the west there. So I'm going to put this, let's see, you can't really see that. I'm going to turn it this way so that, well, it's not really going to matter. We'll just leave it off board here for a second. So basically, let's do that way. We have one Romania card out there. And we don't resolve the diplomacy cards until after we've gone all through the government phase and we have 3 passes to end it, and then we will resolve diplomacy. So that's what the Soviets have decided to do. Now we will go to the West and see what they want to do. And I think they're going to play a USA influence card. So we're going to put that out. And that is their action. And then now it is up to the Axis to see what they want to do. And I think they're going to play a Czechoslovakia card. So let's put that over here to show that they are playing a Czechoslovakia. They would love to get their grubby little paws all over Czechoslovakia. So now we go back to the Soviets. And how many cards do they have? Their hand size is 6, so we still have more than 6. So it's in their best interest to definitely play some more cards here. And I think they're going to play a Finland. Trying to get some influence into Finland, and that's going to be their card play. Now we go to the West. And the West is going to play, what are they going to play? Just looking, there is a Latin American card. So Latin America is down here. I think they're going to play Greece. So Greece is, here's Greece. There's a resource in there, so why not? We'll play that. And then now we're going to go back to the Axis. And the Axis is going to, they're going to play a Greece card. That'll kind of counter what the West just did there. They want to keep the West out of Greece. And that's probably for Italy's sake more than anything else, but maybe not. So that's the Axis. Now we go back to the USSR. And they are going to play another Romania card. So that's their second one. Now we go back to the West, and the West is going to play a second USA card. And now we go back to the Axis. Okay, and they're going to play another Czechoslovakia card because they want Czechoslovakia. Now we go back to the Soviets. I'm looking. So one thing to consider when you're looking is if you're trying to get these resources, you're going to have to be able to trace paths back to your main capitals or your subcapitals. So keep that in mind as well. And they're going to play a third Romania card. So that's 3 Romania cards. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is their card limit. They can hold all those if they want to. So let's go ahead and now go to the West. And they are going to play a Finland card here because they don't want the Soviets in Finland. And now we're going to go to the Axis again. The Axis is going to play a USA card because they're trying to keep the US out of anything that might occur. Back to the Soviets, and do they want to do anything here? Let's see. They would like to have another Finland card, but they don't. What they do have, though, do they want to play it, though? I think they're going to pass. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they can certainly hold these cards. They're just going to pass. So So we're going to go to the West. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so the current hand size is 8. So they could hold all these as well if they chose. Let's see what we got here, though. And I think they're going to play a Portugal card. Now back to the Axis. Their current hand size is 7, and they got way more than that. So let's see what they want to do here. So they're going to play this Ethnic Ties. And what that allows them to do is add 1 friendly influence marker from one of the neutral nations listed after your faction. In this case, they can do it to Austria, Sweden, or Norway. Well, they want to do Austria. So they're going to add they get to add an influence marker into Austria. So let me grab one of those. So here is a German influence marker now going into Austria. And we will discard that to the, it's our first discard for the action deck, it looks like. And I hope I didn't put any action cards. I don't think I've discarded any action cards into the, no, I haven't. All right. I believe that goes into the discard pile. And so that is it for the Germans. Now we go back to the Soviets, and I don't really think there's anything else they want to do at this moment. Now they do have some of these friendly marker cards. I don't think I want to do that yet with the USSR because, like I said, it's only Spain or Czechoslovakia. And unless they want to just antagonize the Axis, I don't think they want to try to do anything in Czechoslovakia. And Spain is kind of up in the air. And again, I think I'm just going to hold off on those for now because you can also remove influence markers with that card. So they may want to do that. So, yeah, they're just going to pass again. I think they might be done. So let's go back to the West. The West, what is the West going to do? So I think what the West might want to do, they have this intimidation card, which will allow the West add or remove a influence marker in any neutral nation. Oh, it's adjacent to friendly controlled territory, though. Yeah, I was going to say I was going to yank out the that German marker. Well, they have birds of a feather. Maybe that'll allow them to do it. Add 1 friendly or remove 1 rival influence marker from one of the neutral nations listed after your faction. So for the West, US, Low Countries, Denmark, or Czechoslovakia. There you go. What? Oh, they are not in Czechoslovakia, so there you don't go. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are going to, they're going to add another Greece influence card, and then now we're going to go to the Axis. They're going to play another Greece card, basically wiping out what the West was attempting over there. And back to the Soviets, they're going to pass. The West is going to pass, so back to the Axis. So what's going to happen here is the Soviet player and the West player, they're both going to pass. They want to hold the cards they have in their hands. So I'm just going to go now through the Axis cards until they get to where they're comfortable. So let's see what we have here. Now I'm going to look at some of their influence markers. So Ties That Bind. This is, we just played an ethnic side, but Ties That Bind will also allow the Axis to place an influence marker in Austria. So they're going to do that. So that's going to be another influence marker into Austria. And again, the other sides are going to pass. So now we go back to the Axis. They're going to play this Versailles card, which also says add 1 friendly or remove 1 rival influence marker from one of the neutral nations listed after your faction. For the Axis, it's Austria, Hungary, or Turkey. So they're going to place a 3rd influence marker into Austria because they really, really, really want Austria, as we know from history. And so now they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see, do they want to play anything else? They are indeed going to play another USA card. They are going to play, they're going to play another Czechoslovakia card. So now they have 3 of those cards. If I can get them on the board. And they have 6 cards remaining. So we're going to go around again. So we're going to go pass, West pass, and now the Axis are going to pass. And that is going to end the government phase. Well, it's not going to end the government phase. We still have to resolve the diplomacy. Now, I did this where I just played the cards and went through, but the way I'm going to do this from now on is as a side plays a card and another side cancels it, I'm just going to cancel it as we go so that we don't have all these stacks of card out. So let's just take a look here and see what's left as far as influence goes. So starting up here at the West, they played, well, let's start with the Soviets actually. They played 2 Romania cards, and I don't think anyone else played Romania cards. Actually, they played 3 Romania cards, and no one countered that. So those 3 Romania cards will give them 3 influence markers in Romania. So let's grab those. So that's 1, 2, 3. They have a Finland card, which gets canceled by the West playing a Finland card. So no effect there. Now let's go over here to the West. They played a Portugal card. No one countered that. So we're going to grab a West influence marker and put that into Portugal. And we will get rid of that. 2 Greece cards. Those were canceled by the, if I can grab these were canceled by the Axis. So they countered that successfully. And then same thing with the US. The West played 2 US cards, and the Axis managed to cancel those with 2 US cards. And all that leaves are 3 Czechoslovakia cards, which gives the Axis 3 influence markers in Czechoslovakia. All right, so starting with the Soviets in Romania, when you have 3 of these influence markers in a neutral, it converts to a satellite. So we're going to show control marker for the Soviets in Romania there. And I'm going to grab the rule book to make sure I hit all the points here for satellite. The satellite is now controlled by that faction, so we show the control. Well, we show the control there. And now we get to place units of the faction's great power in the minor cities and towns according to their muster value. So over here on the map key, we have muster value. So we're looking at Bucharest here is a city with a population of 1 and a muster value of 2. So that muster value of 2 means that we get to add a size 2 cadre into Romania. So what do the Soviets want to put there? I think we're going to grab an infantry, and there will now be a, level 2 infantry in Romania. That's from becoming a satellite. And then it says the faction has exclusive use of the satellite's population and resources. There are 2 resources there. And they do tell you that when these neutrals change hands to go ahead and immediately adjust the population and resource values for whoever gets those. And this one's going to be 2 resources for Romania. So this resource marker will go from 11 to 13. And then again, Bucharest is a city, so that's 1 population, so that's going to go to 13. And that is it for the Soviets. And now we go to the Germans, who have just acquired Czechoslovakia. So now that is under the control of the Germans, and no resources, but it is a city like Bucharest was there. So muster value of 2, the Germans are going to grab an infantry, and they're going to put that into Czechoslovakia. And population of 1, so that's going to increase their pop to 12. And then down here, we have Austria, which is now under the control of Germany. There are no resources. It's again, it's a city, so muster value of 2. They're going to choose, let's give them, what do we want to give them? Let's give them an infantry unit. And it's level 2. So we will start that at level 2. Population was 1. So the population is now going to be, or did I already increase that? I did for Czechoslovakia, but not Austria. So now that goes up to 13. And we had one more. Yeah, we had Portugal is now an associate of the West. So if we look at that, it says the faction has exclusive use of its population and its resources. So that is a town. So nothing for that. There is one resource though, so the resource level for the West will go up by 1. An associate remains neutral, has no control over the territory. Units cannot enter and be built there. However, military incursion by any faction into an associate is a violation of neutrality. And so the next thing on our sequence of play would be to resolve the, to make sure that the hand size is within compliance. And I'm pretty sure they are. I think we double checked that for the Soviets were at 6. We'll do it again real quick here just to make darn sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're in compliance. It's like I knocked my board. I didn't even notice that. So let's straighten that back out. The West is at 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're in compliance. And then finally the Axis is at 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they are in compliance. And we move on. So now we go to the season. So over here, we would move our phase season marker up to the spring. So as a reminder, and we're now in the spring, this is where these action cards would come into play. So for instance, this one is one that could be played in the summer. If one of these powers were holding this card, they could wait until the summer rolls around and play this for 9 movements for its units. If it said spring, they could play it now. So let's see if any of these powers have a spring card and want to play it now. So Soviets are going to pass here. The West is going to pass. And the Axis is going to pass. So that's 3 passes in a row, and that's going to advance our phase season marker to summertime now. And we're going to do the same thing all over again. So let's take a look at the Soviet cards now that we're in the summer, and they are going to pass. The West is going to pass. The Axis is going to play a card. Now, normally you would play this face down if you were playing against other people, but we don't have that problem here. So they are going to play this summer command card. So we're going to go back now. They played their summer card. We'll go back to the Soviets. They're going to pass. The West will pass again. So we're going to resolve this. Now, this is a value of 6. So that's 6 units can now move. 6 Axis units can now move. And so there are some restrictions on movement. If you look at the unit chart over here, it does have the number of spaces that a unit can move. If you're using strategic move, you can double that movement. And just to be careful of where you're moving to and from. The rules are pretty clear about that. For instance, you can't enter neutral territories unless you declare a violation of neutrality. What else? You can't enter your rivals' owned territories without declaring war. And so let's go ahead and do that. Let's move some units. And of course, we don't have to move all 6 units. We can choose as many or as few as we do, as long as we don't go over 6. So I think we're going to bring a fleet out into the Western Mediterranean here for the Axis. The Italians are going to move that fleet out there. And I think they want to move an infantry unit down into Czechoslovakia for now. And that's all they're going to do. So that's all they wanted to do with that card. So now we're going to go back to the Soviets, and they're not going to do anything here. The West is going to pass, and back to the Axis. They are going to also pass, so that's 3 passes in a row. So that's going to take us to, well, we would be going into the blockade phase, but there's nothing to worry about yet. We're not at war. So we're going to go now into the fall phase. We start with the Soviets again, and they're going to play a card. They're going to play that fall command card. To the West, they are going to pass. And back to the Axis, they are also going to pass. So back to the Soviets now. So they've already played a card, so that's 3 passes in a row. So now we're going to resolve the Fall command for the Soviets, they get to move 7 units, and they are going to move, let's see, and here we are eligible for strategic moves because it's all through friendly territory. And what were the other conditions for strategic movement? Let's take a look so we make sure we're not missing anything. So for strategic movement, units can move double their normal movement speed when they move strictly within friendly territory, including open seas, and do not engage or disengage. You cannot combine strategic movement with land and sea. And it says strategic sea movement must stop upon entering a land area except for straits. Strategic air movement must start and end in friendly territory. So let's see what the Soviets want to do here. I think they want to bring, they got this unit way back up in the Urals. It isn't doing anything. Infantry can move 2, strategic it can move 4. So we could go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to bring it down to Odessa. So that's 1. So we went from 7. We'll get our handy D20 out. So they have 6 remaining moves they can make. We're going to bring an infantry down to Belorussia. Now we're down to 5. I'm going to bring an armor into Leningrad. Now we're down to 4. This infantry is going to move into Kiev. Now we're down to 3. This armor is going to move down to Kiev, yeah. Now we're down to 2. And this infantry unit is going to move into Belorussia, leaving 1, and I'm just going to discard that 1. We're not going to use it. So the Soviets are moving their forces westward. We don't know why. I don't know why yet. I have some ideas, and if you have some ideas, you can suggest those down below. Okay, so that was the end of the fall season. Now we go to the winter season. Now winter is a little different here. So here it says, in the winter season, USSR only can play 1 command card for any season. So any season they choose, they can play in order to move units and fight battles within the USSR only. Winter supply phase follows, which applies to units within the USSR only. So nothing here. They're just going to pass. There's nothing to do here. So that is going to end the year. So we're going to go back to a new year. And so 1936 ends and we start 1937. And I'm going to stop it here because we are over an hour, and that was 1 complete turn. And if you saw anything that I might have gotten wrong, please let me know in the comments below. And again, if you have some suggestions for this narrative as to what the West, the Axis, or the Soviets might want to do, let me know. I don't want to do anything too crazy. I don't want to get too ahistorical, but I am open to all suggestions because, like I said, this is a narrative playthrough. We're telling a story here about whatever this world looks like, their World War II is going to look like. So we saw some interesting things happen here. The Soviets took Romania. They're a satellite now of the Soviet Union. Germany has gained Czechoslovakia and Austria, so I'm sure they're happy about that. And that was pretty much it. The West really, they gained influence in Portugal here, so that's the start. Nothing happened in Spain, which is interesting to me. Yeah, that's it. So we're going to end it here. I look forward to reading your comments on this. And when we come back, what'll happen is we'll end up reshuffling the decks and jumping right back into 1937 to see what happens. Will we see combat? I don't know. We'll find out. We certainly have the potential for that now. I know that the Germans would love to march into Poland and reconnect part of their territory back into German territory. And we know that historically that happened. The Soviets would probably also love to march into Poland, but who knows, now that they have Romania down here, maybe they want to do something different and come back around into Turkey. I don't know. We'll find out. All right, as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't, so that you can get notified of when these videos come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back here next time.